There is an ongoing fight for the people in this West End neighborhood to be able to live in a clean and healthy environment. The neighborhood received its name for the long history of various industrial plants infecting this community of Louisville, specifically the rubber industry. People living near these chemical plants are twice as likely to live in poverty and nearly 3 times as likely to be a person of color, according to a WFPL analysis. Currently, there are still 11 chemical plants located in Rubbertown, with 30,000 residents within 1 mile of the chemical complex. And the Rubbertown area accounts for 42% of air emissions in Jefferson County. Not only are there 11 chemical plants located in Rubbertown, but also Lee's Lane landfill. This is the story of Louisville citizens standing up for themselves to fight environmental injustice. We must first start by looking at the history of Rubbertown that leads to a community banding together for justice. During World War II in the 1940s, the federal government chose Louisville for rubber production because of access to roads, railroads, and of course the Ohio River. Thus the name Rubbertown. In 1945, the Louisville Metro Air Pollution District was founded due to coal being burned throughout the city. So during the 1950s, the federal government was buying a surplus of industrial plants, and the Louisville Metro Air Pollution District produced an air quality study that revealed extremely high levels of carcinogenic chemicals in the air surrounding Rubbertown, causing property value to go down in the already impoverished and segregated area. Through the 1960s, industrial parks kept expanding in Rubbertown. And in 1983, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA, places Lee's Lane landfill onto the Superfund program's national priority list because of contamination from methane gas and other hazards within this landfill. During the 1990s, environmental justice started to gain more momentum in the mainstream media and became more of a movement. There were a dozen chemical plants in Rubbertown, and the Lee's Lane landfill was still on the Superfund national priority list until 1996, and is still to this day a Superfund project. The late Reverend Lewis Coleman of Louisville's Just Resource Center got people together in Rubbertown community to lead an environmental movement. Reverend Coleman gathered people to protest about the health problems that were believed to be connected to the chemical plants and the landfill in Rubbertown. Because of this, in the late 1990s and early 2000s, the West Jefferson County Community Task Force was created and teamed up with local officials of the University of Louisville and the EPA to create a landmark air pollution study and risk assessment. In 2003, this report was finished. It revealed that the health risks from long-term exposure is incredibly high. A main threatening cancer-causing chemical is 1,3-butadiene. 1,3-butadiene is a colorless gas with a slight gasoline odor that is used to produce synthetic rubber. Short-term, this gas irritates the eyes, the nose, and the throat. Long-term exposure will increase the risk of cardiovascular disease and cancer, according to the EPA. The same year this assessment study came out, Reverend Coleman established the Rubbertown Emergency Action, or REACT, in 2003. This is a grassroots organization for the people living in Rubbertown and surrounding areas to fight for the rights of people living in Rubbertown. Because REACT had such an impact on the community, in 2005, a strategic toxic air reduction program was released by the Air District Board. The program is called STAR. STAR measures the health risks from pollutions being emitted from the plants and force the levels to be kept below strict guidelines. But in 2013, funding for the city's only toxic air monitoring program had been revoked. The chemical plants themselves were then responsible to measure their own emissions and report them until 2017, when the EPA started monitoring again. In 2019, the American Synthetic Rubber Company was fined $135,375 for emission leaks. This money went to the Louisville air quality regulators and not the community itself. This fine would not even put a dent in their budget. Nonetheless, why wouldn't this money not be going back to the community or be used to help screen for health problems for the people who lived in Rubbertown? According to the EPA, the total emissions of the cancer-causing 1,3-butadiene has fallen by 98% in the past 20 years. But is this still enough? What about the people living in the community? This narrative only scratches the surface of the injustices that have happened for decades in Rubbertown and what is happening now. There are things that we can do to help support programs like REACT, such as follow their social media that is updated regularly and posts about local meetings where you can advocate for the people of Rubbertown. Or use your voice and vote to promote policy changes to the environment. I hope that this presentation has encouraged you to research more about Rubbertown and the injustices in our community of Louisville.